Very good.
Okay, perfect. All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out to the grade 8 registration information session. We've got a couple of DPAC people on here tonight that will help facilitate the meeting. We've got Chris Schultz-Lorenzen running slides, Katie McElgan-Jonas, who is going to be monitoring Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out to the grade 8 registration information session. We've got a couple of DPAC people on here tonight that will help facilitate the meeting. Coming out to the grade 8 registration information session. Katie McElgan-Jonas, who is going to be monitoring Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out to the grade 8 registration information session. Chris, what's happening? People on here tonight that will help facilitate everyone, and the meeting. Coming out to the grade 8 registration information.
Sorry, some technical difficulties.
Okay, that was like a terrible nightmare right there. Okay, so we have a few people from DPAC on the call tonight that are going to be helping out. Katie will be monitoring our YouTube channel and helping with the chat. And Paulina, if I can get you to watch for hands being raised in the audience, that would be great. The SD42 DPAC is the largest stakeholder at the education table, representing all the parents and guardians and primary caregivers of approximately 16,000 students. I'm honored to be here as a guest on the traditional and unceded territories of the Halkomenan-speaking people of the Katzie First Nation and Kwantlen First Nation. To our Métis partners and friends, we see you and we hear you, and we recognize that there is still work to be done on this path to reconciliation. Aichka, welcome, Tansi. Here is our agenda for the evening. And my name is Trish, and I am the current chair of the SD42 District Parent Advisory Council. So the secondary PACs are not much different than the elementary school PACs. The biggest variable being that most secondary PACs do not engage in any sort of fundraising and rely heavily on the gaming grants that they receive. The PAC is a place for all parents to feel welcome and to voice their opinions, concerns, ask their questions, be involved, and most importantly, have a voice to see how that gaming grant money is going to be spent on the activities, groups, and clubs within the school. So tonight on the call, we have the secondary principals from all of our secondary schools in SD42. From Garibaldi Secondary, we have Ian Liversidge. From Maple Ridge Secondary, we have Grant Freed. From Pitt Meadow Secondary, we have Colin Sharp. From Samuel Robertson Technical, we have Ken Alphick. From Thomas Haney Secondary, we have Darren Rowell. And from Westview Secondary, we have Catherine Blanco. And I will now turn our meeting over to our school trustee and vice chair of the school board, Kim Dumore.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me. This is such an exciting time for family and children of SD42. It's exciting, it's trepidatious, it's a whirlwind, it's time sensitive, and it's something that I know your students are looking forward to moving forward pre and post spring break. High school is such a fun time for young people transitioning from grade 8 to grade 9. Today, I had the pleasure of being at MRSS, and there was a Student of the Month opportunity that was being presented to the young children, really getting to showcase how awesome they are. Garibaldi had a YPI initiative, which is the Youth Philanthropy Initiative, and they also have an arts night this evening. And there's so many fun and fabulous things happening in our school district that you'll be able to take part of moving forward with your students. One thing that I want you to believe and not listen to your kids about is PACs in high school matter, and you really should be involved, even though your kids probably don't want you there. Really get involved in your school PACs. It's important for you to have a voice there and have an opportunity to speak to administration and really learn what's happening in the school, because it's exciting and there's a little something for everybody. So I thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing your students and yourselves in the school in the next year.
Okay, and now we are going to pass over the meeting to the principal's presentation. And first off, we are going to have Ken Kober, an assistant superintendent with SD42.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. So firstly, I want to begin the meeting by acknowledging that I'm working from the assumption that the majority of our parents joining the meeting tonight are first-time high school parents. So this will be their first experience with secondary school transition. So on behalf of the secondary principals, I want to say welcome to high school. And as nervous and as unsure as you may be about this, the answer is yes, you are ready, and yes, your child is ready for the secondary school experience. And I love the fact that you've taken the time to find out additional information so that you can make the best informed decision about the educational plan when it comes to the high school experience for your child. Hopefully by the end of this evening, you will have a number of your questions answered, and we will have shared information with you, which will help to settle your nerves and allow you to feel more confident about the decisions you and your child are making. Before I turn it over to the principals to give their individual share their individual information. It's outlined there on the slide what each individual is going to be talking about. I do want to give an overview. The grade 8 program at our secondary schools, regardless of secondary school, is very consistent in structure, delivery, and opportunities. And that is done with a real sense of purpose for our district. We're really appreciative of the investment of time our elementary schools have put into getting students ready for transitioning and working with our secondary team to transition students successfully to the high school program. And the secondary schools have been very thoughtful about what the grade 8 program should look like for students. We value and understand the importance of success and believe that the opportunities at grade 8 that we offer the students is there for the students to explore, to grow, develop, challenge themselves in safe and healthy ways. And in our presentation, we talked as a team, and hopefully we have 6 different topics we're speaking to. We felt these would resonate with you as our audience. So I'm going to turn it over to the principals to give the presentation. I will acknowledge that at the end of this presentation involving the principals, they will be leaving the Zoom, and you will be left with myself, assistant superintendent, and Cheryl Schwartz. She's also an assistant superintendent responsible for secondary portfolio. So Cheryl and I will be remaining in the Zoom to answer and facilitate additional information about the grade 8 registration process. So I will turn it over now to the first principal. I believe the first gentleman is Grant Friend from Maple Ridge Secondary, and he will be talking to you about initial transition steps for grade 7 to grade 8 students.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Assuming you can hear me, I'd like to thank you for welcoming me into the Zoom tonight. It's an exciting time, and I've had the privilege of being a principal in 3 of our secondary schools, and I can say confidently that all of our schools, have such a talented staffs in place to help make experiences for our children successful. So I know there's a little bit of stress around kind of the where. We do have 6 great secondary schools in the district and kind of lots of opportunity at each school. So I just want to share with you a bit of information about what the transition process will look like. So after placements are made, in April, transition meetings will start between secondary schools and elementary schools. So staff from secondary schools will connect with staff at elementary schools around kind of individual student needs. In April and May, transition meetings between elementary schools, high schools, families, community supports where needed for students with exceptional needs will start to happen. Transition plans are developed. Some students may need visits later on in the spring to help ease the anxiety about that transition. Those things will all be developed in the spring. On May 25th, secondary schools will welcome grade 8 students for the day, where they will kind of have an introduction to high school. And then on September 5th is the first official day of high school for our incoming 8s. Many of our secondary schools have a program that's called Link Crew. It's a mentorship program where we have older students who are trained to act as mentors for incoming grade 8 students. They run an initial orientation as well as activities throughout the school year to connect the students with high school, and so that they know that they have a mentor. So we put a lot of effort into easing the transition. That said, there's anxiety because it is a move from an elementary school into a secondary school. So there is always some anxiety there. And I think that's natural and it's healthy. So we just want to try and help manage that and try to convert that anxiety into excitement for what is ahead. So thank you so much for the time. And I'm not sure if I'm introducing Darren Rowell, who's the principal at Thomas Haney, or not, but he is the next speaker.
Thanks, Grant. So good evening, everybody. I'm Darren Rowell, as Grant mentioned, and I've had the privilege of working in 5 of the 6 high schools as either a teacher, vice principal, or principal, with the exception of Pitt Meadows. And I just really want to echo what Grant said in terms of the commonalities that we all have. I see the similar structures in place, the similar course options in place, but most importantly, really committed, caring staff and really positive school communities in all 5 of the schools that I've been in. So I just want to give you sort of a 2-minute version of the high school schedule, the types of courses, and then just touch on a few of the unique things in some of the schools. So in grade 8, students take 8 courses, and the school day is divided between sort of a day 1 with 4 courses and day 2 with 4 courses. And most of the schools have a flex block. So every day there would be 5 sort of periods, 4 are filled with classes, and 1 is a student choice block. And that student choice block is really important for students to make some decisions around their educational needs. They might go to an area of high interest, or they might go to a place to get some sort of remedial work or some support with classroom work. So 8 courses in grade 8, and all students take 4 core academic courses, and that would be math and science and English and socials. And quite often those courses, the math and science, might be taught by the same teacher, and the English and socials might be taught by the same teacher. Students take PE, and they have a sort of a PE specialist in that role. And PE is the big gym, it's the equipment, it's the weight room, all of those things. It's the physical activity, it's the games, but also PE in high school really incorporates a lot of the mental health and wellness curriculum as well. Students take French language or a language combination. At Thomas Haney, it's French and Spanish. And this course is really, there's a cultural focus to it. And students in grade 9 have the choice to continue with French. Grade 8, it is part of that core package. in grade 9, they can make the choice of continuing with full year French or a full year Spanish. Where things get really interesting, and I think a lot of the joy of high school happens, is with the rotations. And so we had the 6 courses, the math, science, English, socials, the PE, and the French. And then the last 2 courses are rotations. And those are samplers where kids get to see the elective choices out there. The courses are divided into what we call ADST, which are applied design skills technology, sort of those applied skills like woodworking, and fine arts. And students take a whole bunch of things. They love almost everything they do. They create things, they make things, they take things home, but it also gives them some insight into what courses they might choose in grade 9, 10, 11, and 12. So the rotations sometimes are packaged together as all the applied skills, like the woodwork, the foods, computer tech, textiles. And with courses like computers, sometimes it's multimedia, sometimes it's a 3D design, or it's coding. There is a career education component in there as well. And then with the fine arts, there is art. So it might be drawing and painting, or 3D work with clay. It might be drama, where there are small skits and great for communication skill development. There might be a music rotation. In some schools, it's minor instruments. In some schools, it's guitar. Some of the schools have some specialty courses for those 2 rotations. Garibaldi has a band all year. So with the 2 rotations, one of the rotations is the all-year band, and then that second rotation is sort of a sampler of ADST and fine arts rotations. Pitt Meadows has an option for all-year band and choir. And Thomas Haney has a peak pod, which is sort of a combination of 2 teachers, and they do their core academics and they have a fitness component to it. But by and large, the students all have a very similar course structure in all the 8 schools, with some minor differences. There are some academies that are offered, and academies are programs that typically are partnerships between the school and an outside group, and there is a fee attached to that. And so at SRT, there is a hockey academy, and the hockey academy, there's some outside coaches that come in and work alongside the SRT school, and they travel during the school day as a class to the arena and back, but that is sort of a during the school day program. In some cases, students want the program, but are unable to get into the school. And as a district, we do have something called cross enrollment, where a student could be at Thomas Haney, for example, and cross enroll to those programs for a particular academy. Garibaldi has a softball academy. Westview has 2 academies. They have a soccer academy that is during the school day, and they have a basketball academy in grade 8 to 12 that is in the mornings. Lastly, there are 2 high schools that operate with slightly different learning models. Garibaldi has a model that is for all students in grade 8, 9, and 10 called MYP. And if you're interested in some of the alternate learning models, I think it's best to go to the Garibaldi website and do a little bit of research. But it's a program that focuses on what's called the learning profile, global context for their studies. There's a community service and a personal project component. And at Thomas Haney is a self-directed learning model, which just has some choice and flexibility built in for students. Are there any questions about some of the scheduling structures or unique programs? Ken, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'm just going to pass it right directly. I believe it is Colin Sharp that we're going to have speak next, and Colin's going to talk about assessment and reporting for grade 8 students.
Yes, hi there. Longtime listener, first time caller here. My name is Colin Sharp. I'm the principal of Pitt Meadow Secondary School. And I've been tasked with talking about communicating student learning. So good evening. All grade 8s will be assessed using the proficiency scale. And so this is coming out of the new reporting order from the Ministry of Education, which comes into effect in September. The good news is all of your students coming out of elementary school have been using the proficiency scale. So it lends to some continuity there. For a long time, assessment and evaluation look differently depending on the subject, the teacher, or the grade. With the uniform use of the proficiency scale, students will benefit from consistency across the curriculum, as well as having been assessed in this manner throughout elementary school. So the proficiency scale language, we have a band there starting with emerging, developing, proficient, and extending. Emerging meaning they're beginning to learn the concepts. Developing, they have developed partial understanding. Proficient, they are consistently and independently demonstrating the understanding within their curricular area. And then if they hit the extending scale, they can apply their thinking in new or innovative ways. Now, depending if we're semestered or linear, if we are semestered next year, there will be 2 formal report cards. If we are linear, we will have 3 formal report cards. But there are other multiple opportunities for communicating student learning, such as student-led conferences, interim reports, as well as informal communication. I always recommend if parents have subject-specific questions, our teachers are more than happy to respond to emails and updating in subject area. Report cards will be subject specific with anecdotal feedback speaking to the level of learning, as well as providing action-oriented steps towards improvement, as well as speaking to IEP goals specific to our learners with IEP. Work habits and attendance are also communicated on those report cards, but they do not impact academic achievement, or they are not counted towards that. All schools within the SD42 and across the province will be consistent in this manner, other than Garibaldi Secondary, which reports using the International Baccalaureate or IB-MYP program language. That said, the new BC reporting order is modeled on that very program, so it does lend itself towards uniformity philosophically. Any questions, if you have throughout the year, please reach out to the grade administrator, the principal, or your grade specific counselors. They would be happy to walk you through the steps. But as I said, the teachers are always your first point of contact if you do have any subject specific questions. With that, I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Ms. Catherine Blanco, principal at Westview Secondary.
Hello, everybody. I'm Catherine Blanco. I'm the principal at Westview Secondary School. I have been fortunate to work at 3 high schools, Pitt Meadow Secondary, Maple Ridge Secondary, and Westview Secondary in the district. And I took a small detour to elementary and spent a year at Davy Jones Elementary in Pitt Meadows. So this evening, I'm talking to you about student services or learning services in our schools. Firstly, as a district, we really pride ourselves on approaching from an inclusive model and a whole child approach. I think it's important to know that all our secondary schools are set up to provide student services to all students in the school, all students. So while there are slightly different structures at all the schools, each school has programming to address and respond to the needs of all students. So when we talk about the whole child, we look at academic support, social emotional needs, and the physical needs of the children. So when we're looking at a learning services or a special education approach, we tend to look at a 3-tier model, where at our tier 1, that's the core classroom instruction and where most of our students are learning. Tier 2, there's some targeted supports, and then tier 1 is our most intensive needs. But each of our classrooms in all schools really approach from a universal design for learning, and that's really has that flexibility so that we can meet the needs of all students in most environments in the school. we have layers of support, and I'm sorry, my cat is here looking for attention as soon as I start talking. We have layers of support. So generally at the school team, we have our classroom teachers, case managers for children who are on IEPs, and counseling teams. We also have childcare workers, Aboriginal support worker, education assistants, and of course our vice principal and principals are really directly involved in supporting kids. Sometimes when there's some more intensive needs, we might look to our district team for support, where we have helping teachers, hearing and vision teachers, SLP, so speech language, occupational therapist, and physiotherapist. And then at times we have to consult with our safe and caring schools if we're just looking for some intensive support for some of our kids. We really approach supporting kids collaboratively, because we just figure, and that includes families and important adults who work with children outside of the schools and any outside agencies, because we just believe that the more people and caring people wrapping around our kids has a great, there's a greater opportunity for success for each and every child. I think a real difference from elementary to high school is that we do have counselors on site at each high school. So each high school has 2 counselors where kids can be accessing those supports throughout their school day. And I think, and if any of you have children, I know they had an evening the other night for children with IEPs. So just if you weren't able to make that night, know that if your child is on an IEP, that IEP carries to the high school. And then you will be contacted by a case manager who will walk you through the process to prepare that IEP for that high school experience. And now I will pass it on to Mr. Elphick from SRT, who will speak to extracurricular activities.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's great to be here. This could be the longest presentation of the night if I was going to list all the extracurriculars at all the schools, but instead I'm just going to talk in general because there's lots going on at every school. It's incredibly important, I feel, that, and I think all the principals share this, the more involved you are with the school before and after the 8:30 to 3 o'clock learning time, the more your child is going to be invested in and enjoying life at high school. We've got a basketball tournament going on right now, and there's activities at the schools in the evenings. And the students need to look at it in terms of all the social opportunities that extracurriculars provide, the interests they can explore, things like computers, chess, things like that. The fact that it kind of builds your self-esteem to kind of socialize outside of school and build some skills that way. Lots of essential life skills take place in sporting events and just clubs, ski clubs, lots of things that go on. Academic performance is much better. There's lots of studies around that. It looks great on resumes when kids get to the age where they're looking for jobs, and university applications they love to see, and scholarships love to see lots of involvement in school. So if you're doing soccer at Westview, the Rainbow Club at MRSS, drama performances at Garibaldi, the chess club at SRT, basketball at Thomas Haney, band at Pitt Meadows Secondary, lots of things are going on. It's not just teams, it's clubs, it's student forums, it's leadership inside and outside of school hours, passions like social justice and causes like that. And I think it's incredibly important that I mean, we've had years of schooling where we've really, the last 3 or 4 years or 3 years, where school was very much a business-like, and it started, and with COVID, a lot of the extracurriculars weren't there. And we all felt deflated as administrators and teachers and people in the education system, because so much of the power of high schools, that extracurricular action. So we all encourage you to get your kids involved, and Ian's going to talk now, Ian Liversidge, the principal of Garibaldi, about how parents can get involved. So thank you.
Thanks, Ken. I'm assuming I'm all heard by everybody. My job is to make sure that I can do the wrap up and try and touch base on anything that anybody missed. Some of my colleagues have been texting me with reminders. So I think number one to remember is everybody said you're in a good place. And for me, the rubber meets the road with data. School District 42 has for many, many years had one of the best, if not the best, graduation rates in the province. And that's because, and I hope you felt that your children are entering into communities that care. We all work to really know our students. We all work to really know their stories. And we all work to really place them in a place to be successful. We do that as a group of, it's not just the school principals, but the team behind that. Nothing makes us happier than seeing the growth and improvement in children over time. So know that no matter where your child is, you're in a good place. Like others have said, I've worked in every school in this district as an administrator except one. And the one that I haven't been in, I had two nephews that went through there and had an extraordinary experience. Between my 7 nephews and 2 daughters, we've covered Maple Ridge. And with sincerity, you're in a good place. I think the role of sliding from an elementary school parent to a secondary parent, sometimes it becomes a bit of a scarier place because they are coming to a building with 1,000 or 1,200 kids as opposed to a smaller school, but in lots of ways it's exactly the same. So the next little bit, I want to try and give you some tips just to help bridge that gap, help to slide you into the life of an operator of a teenage child, which can be challenging, speaking as a dad. But if you want to jot these down, these are some good things. Number one, attendance. We track attendance by period. So every school uses an auto dialer and an auto email system. They are accurate. When you hear the story of, oh, I was just late and the teacher missed it, it probably is not true. So don't be afraid to communicate back to the school and double check. Don't be afraid to say, that's great. Then pull out your notebook and show me the notes that you did for that class today that you were marked as absent in. Attendance matters. And it can become very slippery very quick. So don't be afraid to ask very good questions when you get that auto dialer or email. That also the opposite side of that is when your son or daughter are absent, excused, we all have medical appointments or what have you, please take the time to call that in, or it's actually easier for us as an office staff if you report that through the portal system, the parent portal system. Same way you would do in elementary school. We pick that up and then that gets distributed to every teacher. So it's not necessary to call each of the individual teachers. Report it once to the office, it's done. All right. Next thing is in the transition where we're coming forward, there is a great care and attention put to placing your students in the appropriate school. We work hard to get everybody where they want to be within the limitations that we have in our district, following the policies that are outlined on the website. Regardless of where your son or daughter end up, start with some positive messaging. Even if perhaps that wasn't the first goal, and I understand that those things happen, but start with positive messaging. One way you can do that is sit with your son or daughter and go through the websites of the schools. We all work real hard to keep our websites robust. We all have Instagram and all these kind of things that can show and create a positive energy in and around the school. Like tonight, of the 6 schools, there's activities happening, and I would expect all 6. Basketball games, we're right in mid-season, arts nights, etc. that you've heard. So try and set that positive messaging, and spending some time to explore the website will be a way to do that. All of us start in the last week of August or the first week of September. There's some variation with each of the schools. All of us start with a very different model for grade 8 intake. That may be that the grade 8s are the only students in the building for a period of time. And all that information is going to come to you on a welcome letter or a portal message in the last week of August. So make sure you're attuned to that. If you don't see that, then double check the website, because I'm very confident that each of the schools will post duplicate information on the website. That way, again, you can make your plans and set out accordingly. Some of that information is going to leak out. Some of that information will leak out with the May event where your son or daughters are coming into our buildings, but mostly that's organized in preparation for August. Last couple of points that were referenced already a little bit, but points of contact. Each of the schools uses a a way to divide the contacts with students. There's over 1,000 students here for me, so it's not appropriate that as a principal, I'm going to be able to be frontline engagement with all 1,000. So in our school, we do grades. Most of the schools in our district are grade-based. So if you look on the website, you'll find a grade-based administrator and a grade-based counselor. And then as well, you'll find each of their teachers. And if your child does have an IEP, you'll find a case manager. Make sure you know and identify your points of contact, because that does help you navigate the system quite quickly. And all of the teacher websites are, of course, websites and emails are, of course, posted. One way to manage that and to make sure that you get those conversations going with your teenage kid is to look to download our app, or in the case of SRT, get a duplicate of the planner or have a good look at the paper planner there daily. The app will give you the ability to see the rotation of the school. In the case of the My School Day app, that's what it's called on iTunes or on Google Play. The My School Day app, you'd actually be able to receive notifications from the school. You can see historic notifications, things like the code of conduct and all that are posted onto the app. I know that we use it quite aggressively as a school to be able to send out advertisements and information around leadership, etc. And these app pushes can be received as a notification direct to any phone. So when we have a significant event in the school, within 20 seconds, I can send an email to 4,500 phones. And that's pretty valuable and pretty significant. So I'd really encourage you to look at downloading the My School Day app. One of the other really neat things is you can take that app and you can load your son or daughter's classes right into it. So you would know what subjects they had each day. And that makes, or that gives you the opportunity to do the last thing that I think really worked for me as a parent, was being able to ask good questions. Teenagers are great at minimizing their words. I've noticed that over 30 years. What'd you do today? Nothing. What'd you learn today? Nothing. And being in the system, I know that's not true. So asking a good question where you can look and know that today your son or daughter had socials or English, and instead of saying what did you do, you can say, what did you do in socials? And can you tell me about that in a sentence? And that opens up that conversation. Schools are about the opportunity to engage. And secondary schools are no less scary than elementary school. The kids are just bigger. They need more showers, and things move a little bit quicker, but that's okay. So don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to communicate, and don't be afraid to know that they're coming into a community where people care. And if your son or daughter does need that help or does need that assistance, open up your points of contact and make sure you invite the help. It's not an accident that our grad rate is over 95, 96%. It's because we're real caring and we really do take care of our people. So with that in mind, just looking at the end of the chat questions. I'm thinking it looks like everything has kind of been dealt with. Should there be hanging questions, please don't be afraid to reach out in the summer if those questions don't get answered, or please make sure you have the opportunity to look at websites, because as I said, we do take great pride in doing our website. So with that, I'll pass it back to our moderator or Mr. Colbert. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you to our entire secondary admin team, principal team, for providing your voice and giving what I think was a very comprehensive overview and maybe overwhelming information, but good information regarding the secondary schools. As I said at the start, our principals will be leaving this presentation. As Ian said, Ken said, the schools are busy, extracurricular, basketball, arts night, things going on. And so I'm anticipating a number of the principals are returning to activities in their school. Cheryl and I will remain here. For the most part, what I anticipate is I will be speaking to the slides that we have, and Cheryl's been doing a great job handling the chat part. So I'm going to allow her to stay as a lead on the chat for now, but we may swap voices at some point in time regarding information. What we're going to talk about are the mechanics to the registration process. So if I could get you to move, yes, if you just go to the next slide from there. Okay, so just for those people in the audience are like, how long is this going to go on for? There's about 6 slides. I'm not talking for the same amount at each slide. I think this slide I'm probably going to talk the most to, because this is the general information one. Hopefully I will address a number of the questions that have coming up about registration, catchment, French immersion, that kind of thing in the slides. And then if not, we still will be available to answer questions at the end. So this is the picture. This is all 6 schools. This is reinforcing the fact that, you know, all of our 6 schools do offer a comprehensive grade 8 program for students. So grade 8 looks very similar at all of our schools. So regardless of school attendance, the student should get a very similar experience. There are 2 things that I will speak to here that I do want to make sure, because this has come up a couple times. I'm going to talk about trades programs to begin with. And trades are not something that grade 8 parents and students need to be concerned immediately with, but it does sometimes influence the thinking for parents. And I want to alleviate any concerns about that. We as a district are incredibly successful with our trades partnership programs with post-secondary schools. And those partnership programs are hosted in 3 of our 6 secondary schools. The students that participate in those partnership programs are grade 12 level. And students select that during their grade 11 year. When they're doing their course selection to grade 12, they will select the trades program. Our trades programs, although being hosted in 3 of our schools, are available for admission for all of our students that are entering in grade 12, regardless of what secondary school they are attending. All students are eligible to apply and be accepted into a trades program. One of the other things that I want to make very clear is that students that are attending a secondary school that hosts a trades program, that does not mean you have to go into trades in your grade 12 year. Many of the students that attend the secondary schools with the trades program are not in the trades program in their grade 12 year. So I just want to clarify that. The second program that I want to clarify about is the IB program. Now, Darren, when he talked to you about timetables, rotations, he did mention academies. And one thing he touched on was also learning models. And he talked about the self-directed model at Garibaldi, or self-directed model that is at Thomas Haney. That is, self-directed model does not start at the grade 8 level at Thomas Haney. The grade 8 program at Thomas Haney is consistent with what our grade 8 program looks like at all other secondary schools. Self-directed does not start at Thomas Haney until the grade 9 year. And it's kind of the shallow end of self-directed pool, and it goes to the deep end as you move up in the grades. The IB program, which is hosted in only one of our schools, and that is the Garibaldi Secondary. The IB program is similar to the trades as a senior program, but it starts at grade 11, not grade 12. So if a student wants to enter IB, they would apply with their course selection at the grade 10 level. When they're choosing their courses for grade 11, while they're a grade 10 student, they would be selecting that. And similar, the IB program is available to all grade 10 students going into grade 11 on our SD42 campus. You do not have to be a grade 10 student at Garibaldi to get into IB for grade 11. And reverse is also true. If you are a grade 10 student at Garibaldi, you do not have to take IB in grade 11. In your grade 11 year at Garibaldi, you can choose to do the traditional dogwood path and not be part of the IB program. What is true for Garibaldi is that they do have the middle years program, and all of their students in the middle years program, which is the earlier branch to the IB program, all students in grade 8, 9, and 10 participate in the middle years program. And it is embedded in the typical educational planning structure that secondary schools have. But there are nuances for sure to the middle years program. And Darren did mention that around a global context and doing a learning model that does have a community connection. Now, to get to the nuts and bolts around registration, I'm going to give you a framework of understanding for registration. We're a really fortunate position as a district. We are growing as a district. So each year we have just a few more students in participating in our educational programs, which is a great thing. It creates more opportunity for staff and students. It does place a little bit of pressure on our facilities. And so in order to navigate that pressure on facilities, we're really, as a district, there is a student placement protocol or procedure that has been developed. The procedure is outlined in our district policy, which is on our website. I'm going to break it down into what I would say is 4 priorities that will really, I would like you to be aware of. So these priorities are this is a sorting mechanism for us. And we sort of address priority 1, then priority 2, then 3, then 4. The first priority for placement in of a student is based on catchment. So what is your catchment school? And the catchment school is determined based on your address that you have registered in the student MyEd system. So you will have given your current address at your elementary school, and they will have put that into the MyEd system. We have a school locator tool on our district website, and you can use the school locator tool, and it can help you to identify what is your catchment school. And it will identify if you're in the French immersion program. So if you're currently a grade 7 French immersion student, you can use the school locator tool, and it will identify which of the 2 French immersion secondary schools is your catchment secondary school. And it also identifies for English stream programming, which of the 6 secondary schools is your English program catchment school. That's the first priority in catchment. Beyond the second priority in the placement process is if you have a sibling in a school, but you live outside of the catchment for that school. Now, the sibling needs to be in the school concurrently with the student entering. So if you're going in as a grade 8, then that means a grade 11 a person who's grade 11 currently will still be there as a grade 12 next year. That way the grade 8 and 12 are in the building together. That's a qualifying sibling. If the sibling is currently in grade 12 and will be graduating, then next year that sibling will not be in the school. So that isn't a qualifying sibling for the sibling priority. So first priority is, do you live in the catchment? Second priority is, you don't live in the catchment, but you're going to have a sibling in the school of choice. The third priority is for families that are in the district, living in the district, but they are out of catchment for a school, and they do not have a sibling in the school. And then the fourth priority that I would speak of is for out of district students. So students that are living outside of our district. So first priority in catchment. Second is you have a sibling, but you live out of catchment. Third is you live out of catchment, don't have a sibling. Fourth is out of district. Okay, I think I would like to go to the next slide, please. Okay, for registration process, all of registrations handled through our parent portal. You need to have an active parent portal account to be able to complete a registration. And so that's something you can set up in advance of the registration time. So for those families new to the district or not yet part of the district that are listening, you can go to our parent portal and set up a parent portal account in advance. The registration process happens in the parent portal, and the start time for the opening period for registration is Thursday, February 2nd, and it becomes available at noon. So noon on Thursday, February 2nd. Now, when I talked about those priorities, in catchment, sibling, out of catchment, out of district, there is a sorting mechanism for placement. And that's about date, a date and time stamp that's given to your registration that you do in the parent portal. I want to emphasize, as soon as you open up the registration application, you get your date and time stamp. You do not have to submit it in order for you to earn a date and time stamp. Sometimes families, we find, will rush through the application and not complete it accurately. And that's because they assumed they had to finish it to get the date and time stamp. And thankfully, our development team and IT have developed it so that the stamp is generated as soon as you open your registration application. And then that allows you to take the time you need to fill it in accurately. So registration opens on Thursday, February 2nd at noon. It is important for you to register as soon as possible to get the earliest date and time stamp for yourself within your priority grouping. Registration will close at the end of the day on Friday, February 17th. So we're open from February 2nd till February 17th. We will close February 17th, and we will be doing our placements based on those priorities. Those families that complete a registration after February 17th, we still will pay attention to the priority list, but it's important you understand as a family that we will have done all the placements from the February 2nd to 17. So if you really, what we really want to encourage is 100% registration within the registration window. Before we move on, I don't have a visual for you here, but I do want to reinforce this, and you will see this when you go onto the parent portal in February 2nd and the registration opens. For you to register for grade 8, there's going to be 2 options for you to choose. So for those families who are currently have students in Maple Ridge School District, it will be what's referred to as an existing student registration. And then there's the second choice will be those families that are new to the district, are not currently, their child is not currently a student in Maple Ridge SD42. For those existing students, the button you want to press is orange. Please remember the color orange. You want the orange button for existing SD42 students. The reason you want the orange button is our IT department have designed it so that you will be able to self-populate your application with quite a bit of your existing information that we have in the parent portal system. Those families that are new, you will need to select the green button because we do not have information regarding students in the regarding your family. You will need to do the green button. So green button is for new students only. Now we'll go to the next slide. And I think I'm going to get to a lot of the questions that are coming up on the side here about registration. Okay, so this slide has four major points that I want to talk to you about. I've talked to you about the parent portal and making sure you have an account on the parent portal in advance so that you're ready to go at noon on February 2nd. The second point that listed there on the slide is about your address, because your address is going to control is going to help, is going to be used to determine your catchment, whether it's for English program or French immersion. So you need to make sure that your address is up to date in the MyEd education student record system at your elementary school, especially this is speaking to families that are currently in our district. And it's important that address is updated. And if you don't believe your address is updated, please confirm with your elementary school what address you have there. And if you need to update it, they will indicate to you what sort of evidence you will need to provide for that update to occur. If you do believe you need to update, please do not leave that update until February 1st to do, or February 2nd, because the parent portal system and MyEd are not live. There needs to be an overnight communication, and sometimes it's a 2-night delay between them. So we really encourage getting that updated at least a couple days before, so February 2nd. So getting that done next week would be great. Third bullet I have there is about the sibling piece. And if you're thinking sibling doesn't matter because we live in the catchment, please indicate sibling. Give us extra information. Don't just think, oh, I only have to indicate sibling if I want to use that sibling priority circumstance. We're asking that families indicate siblings for any students that are currently in grade 8 through 11 at a secondary school for the incoming grade 8 student. Now, the last bullet here, I think there's been a few questions come about this, and my goal is to be as clear as possible on this for you. Every family will have 2 choices that they can submit for their secondary school selection. So you get to make a first choice and a second choice. And now this is an interesting point I want to make here is, if you want your catchment school, then yes, you do need to indicate that. And if your catchment school is your first choice, then make sure you include it as your first choice. If your catchment school is not your first choice, but it's your second choice, then please indicate your catchment. Do not assume that you get to make a first choice and a second choice, and then your catchment is already something else that's considered. I would encourage you to make a first and a second choice. Sometimes families who are very passionate will choose the same school twice. I recognize that sends a message letting us know that that's a priority for you, but from a placement point of view, it doesn't give us more variety around trying to accommodate. What I can speak to from last year's process, what were we able to do successfully? Last year, when placing all our grade 8 students, and remembering we're placing approximately 1,200 grade 8 students in our district for the school year, we were able to satisfy all in catchments. We were able to satisfy all siblings. So it was a significant amount of work, but it was important to us to maximize how many applications we could satisfy in the priorities. The third priority I talked to you about, the out of catchment, but living in the district, we were not able to satisfy all of those last year, and we were not able to satisfy all the out of district applications based on what they wanted for first and second choice. We were able to place all students. One qualification I could also identify is we were able to place all students in their catchment schools, even if maybe their catchment school wasn't their first or second choice. So we were able to do that part. Okay, if we could go to the next slide, please. This one just dates. People have referenced this already. And I put the January 25th date up. Yes, it's passed. I understand that, but I'm putting that there as a reminder to you that when your child is in grade 8, 9, 10, and you're thinking about the IB program, remember annually Garibaldi has an IB information night, and it happens in January. I would encourage you to reach out to Garibaldi, find about the IB information night so that you can make an informed choice. If you think your son or daughter would like to transition to IB going into grade 11. January 24th, a night that has passed, but it was just acknowledgement that our learning services team, so as a district, we do try to address all our student needs in terms of transitioning and ensuring we support students. If you weren't able to participate in the learning services information night, you can reach out to your student services staff member at your elementary school, and if necessary, they can connect with the district team. May 24th is a day I believe Grant Friend mentioned. That is traditionally is is the day that the current grade 7 students get to go to their assigned grade 8 school and participate for the day at their high school and get a flavor for it. And the high schools invest a significant amount of time organizing the activities and events. It involves staff and students. Quite often there's a large number of grade 11 and 12 leadership students that are leading activities for the incoming grade 8s on that May 24th day. I believe that's the last Wednesday in May or third Wednesday in May. And you will likely get information about what's happening at your assigned school around the end of April. About a month beforehand, there will be an email communication. Some people may wonder, why is it May 24th? Why do we wait till May to do this? And I can explain a couple slides from now. I will give you an explanation to understand that. And then the last point was August, in which Ian touched on, and also Grant did, that at the end of August, quite often many schools run activities for the students, and they have the new grade 8 students coming into the school either at the end of August or early in September, so that they get to sort of be the only individuals in the building, along with staff and senior students, helping to settle and develop a sense of belonging and attachment. Okay, if we could move to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is, before I start talking about transfer process, what will happen is the registration closes the February 17th, and we as a district will then working on using the priorities and the procedure placements, the placement steps, and families will receive an email communication letting you know the assignment for your student for grade 8, and that communication will come out by the first week of March. So I think the last Friday in March is the first Friday in March is March 3rd. So by March 3rd, you will receive an email communication indicating where your assignment is for grade 8. If the assignment that you receive is not your first and second choice, and you are really passionate about either your first or second choice, you have the option of completing a transfer request. And the transfer request process, which is also facilitated through the parent portal system, will open the following week. It opens on March 8th at 12 noon. And very similar process. The transfer process is dealt with, is same idea. Your application for a transfer, as soon as you open your application, you get your date and time stamp. So you don't have to have your application completed in order to earn a stamp. Again, thank you to our IT department for that. And we do transfer placements at secondary schools based on availability of space. And then we work through the priorities. Is this a placement of a in-catchment student who didn't get into the school? Is this the placement of a out of catchment but has a sibling? Is this the placement out of catchment but lives in the district? Is this the placement out of district student? So we still follow the placement priorities. We work in phases for the transfers. And so there's 3 phases, and the first phase opens March 8th and will close by the end of March, March 24th, and then we review that as a secondary team. Secondary schools review availability of space, if there's been any movement out at any grade 8 students. to create space. We go through the priority, we do the placements, and our goal is to place as many transfers as possible if there's vacancy that has been generated. And we do this transfer, and that's why that May 24th date is May 24th, because it allows us the insulation to do the first step of placements and then address any potential space that was generated when some changes were made by some families in decision-making about their grade 8 programming. We do our transfer placements that we can, because we want the students to go, if we're transferring a student, we want to transfer them before they are going for that grade 8 visit on May 24th. If we can go to the next slide. Now this slide, this is really just recapturing what I believe you've heard from quite a few voices. I think Catherine, when she's talked about student services, I like the way she phrased it. We're an inclusive model. It's a holistic approach. It really is the whole child that we're working to support. And so that's the social, emotional, the physical, and the learning. So the academic part. And hopefully the voices of the principals did deliver that message to you, and so that you understand. And we don't do this in isolation. I'm really appreciative, or we're really appreciative of the support the elementary schools provide to the secondary school teams. And we're really super appreciative of the support our district learning services team provide as well. So whether that's our safe and caring schools or our learning services support, to help ensure that we do the best we can to transition every one of our 1,200 grade 8 students, grade 7 students into grade 8, because we understand, their first impressions are important, and they're becoming attached, developing a sense of belonging and ownership, and seeing themselves in their new location is going to make a significant difference to the trajectory of their development, growth, and success as a high school student, as a community member, and in their academic endeavors. Now, if we could go to the next slide. This is just a visual for you on the website where you can find information. So in the parent tab, and then there is a grade 8 registration or grade 8 transfer registration, has information there. You'll go there, you'll see a visual for the orange button and the green button I talked about, for example. And also just below that little red box, you'll see there's also a tab there about transfer information. And if you go to the transfer information, there's a subcategory, I believe, for secondary school transfer that you would need to click to see the information there. All right, now, Cheryl, I have trusted you, and I, with all confidence, handling that, the questions in the chats. Would you like the microphone and to address some things that maybe have been asked while I've been talking?
Sure, if you don't mind for a moment.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for inviting me here this evening. It's wonderful to see your questions there, and it takes me back to 7 years ago when I was in the same position as you are right now. And I can empathize with all those mixture of emotions that you're feeling. And you probably felt those same feelings when your child was starting off for kindergarten as well. So this is an exciting time, and I'm sure they navigated elementary school with brilliance and enjoying all their many gifts that they have to offer their classmates and their school community. And I'm confident that they'll do the same thing in high school. I just wanted to explain a couple of things there in the chat. My apologies if I missed some of the specific questions. I was trying to move my fingers as fast as they could and read them as they were flipping up. So apologies if I missed some. And I just wanted to make sure that questions that were shared from the YouTube channel, that those that were on the YouTube could actually see the responses, because the video was being live streamed. Chris, do you know that answer? Can they see them? I just want to make sure.
So Chris has been taking all of the responses in the chat and has been copying them into the chat on the YouTube channel. So they have been answered in the YouTube channel as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I had a principal text me wondering about that. So I just wanted to share. There's a question there wondering about if your child needs a laptop. That's not something we can tell you. If your child needs that, you need to make a decision what works for your family. Of course, if your child does bring any technology to school, it's important that they always secure it in a safe space or carry it on their person in their backpack at all times. So that's an important piece to note. There was a wondering too about school tours. We don't do school tours in advance of selection because selection is based on whether you're a French immersion student or specifically your catchment area. And so as our principal so eloquently shared, there's so much to offer in all our schools that, you know, there's wonderful support programs. There's lots of great extracurricular activities to partake in, amazing caring staff for your students to get to know over the next 5 years. So we don't offer the school tours. There was also a question here that someone had wondered about academies. There is on our school district website a lot of additional information specific to the academies. And if you are on Facebook, I'd encourage you to follow the school district Facebook, social media, as well as Twitter, because sometimes the academies have information evenings. So for example, Hockey Academy, and then you can go and get some specific information connected to those academies as well, and find out the specifics about how you go about registering for them and the fees that are attached. And again, that would be specific to that school, the academy that's offered, but you know, you have to check to see if that works for your family. I think it was Grant, Mr. Friend at MRSS that shared at the beginning too, that if you're looking at academy, sometimes it can be that cross enroll that can happen, but please recognize when we say cross enroll, that means that your child could be potentially at their home-based catchment school and then partaking in an academy at another school, but sometimes the course does not line up exactly as is. So then they could potentially be missing classes at their home-based school because the blocks do not rotate the same in all our secondary schools. So that's an important consideration to have there. I can just answer the question there. There was wondering about class size and composition, and that's consistent across all our classes in our district. IB is International Baccalaureate Program. I just want to quickly scan here to see if there's anything. And again, if there's something that you really want an answer to and we happen to miss it this evening, connect with your child's principal or vice principal at their elementary school, and they may have the answer for you. And by all means, if they don't, they'll connect to their feeder school administration or to us, and we'll be happy to get that information back to you. There was a wondering about too, that I feel this is important to share about the last in August, when typically the link leaders or leadership students would reach out to our incoming grade 7s to offer that community space for them to come in and get to know their new high school. What happens if you have a planned family trip at that time? And I know sometimes that may even be booked at this time for your family. So that day is filled with a variety of activities. It's also trying to get your child familiar with the actual school space. So sharing with them, where is the cafeteria? Where is the gym, for example, the library? The link leaders typically will walk your child through where their schedule is to help them to get accustomed to where their classroom as well, that location is. And sometimes they help them with locks as well. So, because for many students, they haven't used a lock before on their locker. Yes, they will get lockers as well. I know that's always a big, exciting thing. And I remember that when I was a high school principal too, the students coming in and being so excited about that they were going to get a locker. So that is something that if you wanted to practice with your child at home, you could practice them maneuvering a lock. That's helpful for them as well. But the link leaders will also connect with your child, typically for the schools that have link program, or sometimes it's leadership students. But I would suggest for you to check in with your school websites once you find out where your child will be placed. And toward the end of August, administration is back into the schools toward the end of August, and they will post updates there as well. And then they will send emails out. So just keep in mind, not all schools have what's called, like Mr. Friend referenced, the Link Leader program, but they typically have some sort of orientation program to help your child get accustomed to secondary school. Digital Arts Academy is at MRSS for senior students. Let's see that question there. I'm just going to have a look again.
We did have a question about what information they needed to readily have on hand in order to be able to complete their registration.
If they have their parent portal account filled in advance, that's a starting point. And then what they'll be asked about the student, the elementary school, that sort of thing. They won't have to, if they're a new family, new to the district, they won't have to do a verification of their information. They can upload that after the registration, but there will be a requirement for that verification to happen within a certain window so that we can move forward with the placement. So really, they just need to, what do they really need on the day of their registration? I would like them to feel confident in who they want to, which school they want to select as their first choice and the second choice. That's what I would say they need. How about that?
Okay.
Cheryl, you're on fire, by the way. Love it.
Thank you.
And then we had a question around if a child with an IEP can opt out of French as a second language.
So what I would do is I would connect with your child's support teacher right now in elementary. And our elementary support teachers connect with the support teachers of the high school that your child is going to be going to. And you can share that piece of information. They will have a conversation with the incoming support teacher and then dialogue with you, and then make decision that's best appropriate for your child.
Okay, and from our YouTube channel, someone is wanting a list of all the specialty programs. They heard IB, but they weren't sure what else.
And
I'm guessing that they're wanting to know about the academies.
So if you go on the school district website and you just type into the magnifying glass academies, all the information will come up there for you.
Okay. And then always our friendly reminder from DPAC that if anybody is going to be out of province during registration, the portal will not work if you are out of province trying to sign into the system to register your child. So either get a trusted family member or friend to log into the portal for you to complete the registration with instructions from you, but it will not work, not even with a VPN. So just a reminder about that.
And I think too, if there's anything else that I could offer you is sometimes there's this wondering that they're in high school. So yes, I know you want to be supportive and be involved, but they need you through this whole journey. And so just asking them when they come home from school, tell me something that was happy in your day today, or where did you eat your lunch today, or what's something that made you laugh in class today. And sometimes that will elicit a little bit of a conversation versus the how was your day, and you may get the shoulder shrug or the yes or no. But please stay super connected to your child and check the school website regularly. The schools that have the app, they sometimes send out push notifications of friendly reminders there. Some of the schools send out weekly updates of what's coming up that week in the school as well. They each have their different forms of communication, but they all have a school website too that will have that information there too. And I would like to support too, by all means, if you are available and you have some time in the evening of a PAC meeting, please go and you can hear some additional information at that too.
And I'll just, if I can compliment Cheryl's about staying connected to students. Oh, yeah, I think high school parents end up doing a lot of chauffeuring. What I believe the pattern is the parent doing the chauffeuring tends to hear a lot of dialogue between the students. And sometimes parents hear things and they think, did that really happen? Is that really what's going on? We invite you to quietly make a phone call, come by the school, connect with an administrator or a counselor, so that we can help you to understand, or you can help us to understand, and we can work together to support the students because the social dynamics do become more complex for those students, and we want them to be as successful both socially and academically. There's a couple more questions flying up here. French IB, if you want IB in grade 11, how does that happen? You will do that in your grade 10 year. You will apply. So in your grade 10 year, you will connect with your student counselor and indicate that you're interested, if you're not at Garibaldi, that you want to go into the IB program, and they will help facilitate the transition from your existing school to Garibaldi for the grade 11 year for IB. French immersion schools, yes, there's always space for French immersion students. We have 2 French immersion schools, and that goes along. So within the 1,200 students we talked about that are grade 8, coming into grade 8, that includes our French immersion, and we take that into consideration when we're creating placements. And our Pitt Meadows is one French immersion school, Maple Ridge is the other French immersion school, and we make space based on the catchment area students. So what catchment do you live in? And so we work backwards from that when we're building programs. There was a question about French immersion. Can anyone go into French immersion? No, not anyone can go into French immersion. You need to currently be a student in our French immersion program. And there were 2 ways for students to join French immersion at elementary. You could have joined it in what's referred to as early French immersion registration, which would have happened in the kindergarten level, or you can do late French immersion. And that's for those students that join it in grade 6. And we have late French immersion only at one school, that's Golden Ears. And by grade 8, both the early and late French immersion students are blended into a single secondary French immersion program.
Yeah, there was one question that was missed there, asking if there was going to be a form. I'm guessing this is referring to an out of catchment enrollment, as to why the student would prefer to go to that school if it is not their catchment school.
No, we don't have a supplemental to give an explanation. We recognize that, and I'll having been part of the team that make the decision last year, I can speak to it directly. There was a significant volume in that 3rd priority out of catchment, no sibling, with applications that we weren't able to satisfy because of how strict our spaces are at our secondary level. And so we really needed to follow the placement criteria and then work with date and time stamp. It isn't something that we feel confident in, that we can sort the sort of the compassionate reasons that are listed. So we do have to default to our procedure and placement process that the district has created to try and be as fair and equitable about placement.
Okay, we had a question from a parent who had their child in French immersion in another district, but had to switch when they moved into SD42. Is it possible for them to take a test so that they can continue French immersion in high school?
So may I just ask, I don't want to put the parent on the spot, so maybe they could just put it in the chat. So their child has done French immersion up to grade 7 and is wanting to do French immersion in grade 8, or they were doing French immersion like kindergarten to grade 3, for example. Up to grade 4. Gladys, may I ask you just to give myself or Ken a call at the district and we can have a chat with you about that?
Yep. Okay, we got you. Thank you.
No problem. I see there's a question there around leadership opportunities at grade 8. There is lots of opportunities for your child to shine in the grade 8 area and all through their high school journey. And there's so many different leadership opportunities, not necessarily just called leadership, but there's different programs with a philanthropy lens, for example, different clubs that they may be interested in. And then they could share that within the school community as well. Typically, some schools will do what they call a club fair or info during lunchtime, or they will do it over the PA announcements. I shared that in the chat, but maybe it got missed with all the different questions coming up. But just encourage your child to listen to the announcements. Sometimes they do them first thing in the morning after the first tone. Some schools do them during flex time. And then any upcoming meetings in the location will be there as well. And sometimes it's sent out on push notifications, or it's on a whiteboard outside the office, so that there's so many opportunities for them to participate in if that's what they want to do.
And
Lots
we had a
of
question
teams, yes.
regarding
Sorry.
joining French immersion from CSF.
May I ask for a further explanation on that?
Yeah, we can have Chris ask for explanation. That question came from the YouTube.
Yes, thank you.
As far as information on each individual schools, there is write-ups on the district website for all of the high schools.
There is about a 30-second delay from Zoom to YouTube, so it'll be a few
problem.
seconds.
There's a variety of different sports offered at all the high schools. I see that wondering there around volleyball specifically. And of course, that's typically with a staff coach or a staff sponsor with a coach. So I don't want to talk out of turn and say that, yes, a school, all of them have it, because sometimes it depends on the availability of coaches at that time.
I'm wondering if that question is possibly coming from us talking about the academy
I see.
classes. So the academy courses are a piece of the academic in some of the high schools, and the teams or clubs would be an extracurricular activity that would take place out of timetable either before or after school or during lunchtime. And most of the schools, you can actually contact them and ask them what sports they do offer once your child's been accepted there. So CSF is the French district.
Yes, sorry, I just wanted to make sure I was understanding. So the child is in the French district right now and wants to continue at French immersion at grade 8.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what I'm understanding? So, and that's a YouTube question, right? So I would write back to the parent and ask them to connect with us at the district. We'll try to set up a program for the child that works for their level of French at this point, right? So if they're in the French district, obviously, the hope would be that they could go into French immersion. Yes, exactly.
Perfect.
At a district level, we have a principal that helps oversee the French immersion program, and we also have a district helping teacher that supports the French immersion program. So we really would be getting their voice involved in the decision making based on the information in front. For both those questions about the student who exited French immersion at grade 4 and is interested in returning at grade 8, and then also the student coming from CSF, potentially coming from CSF.
Absolutely.
I don't see any more questions on the YouTube channel or on the Zoom chat. We'll give it just a few more minutes for everyone to kind of think about the questions they might not have answered if they want to, or asked if they want to ask some questions. Was there any additional information, Sherilyn, Ken, that you want to share with the group that you thought of as we've been chatting through some of the questions?
No, just enjoy the rest of your evening and the last few months in elementary school with your child. And we look forward to welcoming your child and your family to secondary school in our district.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone so much for attending this evening. I hope that the information was helpful and that all of your questions were answered. If you do at any point in time feel that you should have asked a question and you didn't, or you did ask a question but did not quite get the answer that you were looking for and want to elaborate a little bit more, please do reach out to the district and they will be happy to answer any questions for you.
Every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take.
A million dreams for the world we're gonna make.